Whether you're stuck in traffic, hitting the gym, or just winding down, we are here to spill the hottest tea from your favorite Bravo shows. From the wildest reunions to the quietest social media unfollows, we cover it all. So welcome back to Reality TV Podcast and Clips. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Let's get into it on 3, 2, 1.
Right.
So there is some major off-camera tension right now happening in Beverly Hills between Bozoma St. John and Amanda Francis. And it perfectly illustrates how quickly professional advice can just completely mutate into personal warfare.
Oh, absolutely. It happens so fast.
Yeah. So Amanda has been publicly claiming that Boz pulled her aside, completely off camera, to tell her that her personal development course is actually losing money.
Wow.
And the spin that Amanda is putting on all of this is that Boz is secretly harboring some deep-seated jealousy regarding Amanda's financial success.
I mean, that is just a classic defense mechanism, right? When someone critiques your business, especially a business that is centered around your own personal brand and your own development, it feels like a direct attack on your identity. Claiming the critic is just, jealous is the absolute easiest way to invalidate their feedback without actually having to sit down and look at your balance sheets.
Exactly. And Boz completely refused to play into that narrative. She fired back, basically saying Amanda simply doesn't understand her own business model.
Right.
And that she was never genuinely interested enough to actually sit down and learn about it. And Boz made it very clear she doesn't need to loudly boast about her corporate successes because her receipts speak for themselves.
She has the background.
She totally shut down the jealousy angle, suggesting Amanda is just grasping at straws for a storyline.
Which is such a sharp, grounded response. But the fascinating thing is, Boz didn't just stop at defending herself. She actually offered some incredibly astute psychological reads on the rest of the group dynamics.
Yes, specifically regarding Durate.
Exactly. Boz observed that Durate is currently operating from a place of being severely emotionally wound up, like to the point where she feels entirely cornered by the group.
And that isolation is just palpable. Because Boz pointed out that Dorit is looking around the room and realizing the safety nets are totally gone.
They've vanished.
Right. Mauricio isn't there for her anymore. Kyle, Amanda, and Sutton aren't stepping up for her. It is just a total vacuum of support. Boz even admitted that Dorit got to a point where she was so overwhelmed she couldn't even see that Boz was genuinely trying to throw her a lifeline.
Well, think about your own group text chats or your own friend circles for a second. Have you ever felt so completely alienated or misunderstood by your own people that you couldn't even recognize a friendly gesture when it was right in front of you?
Oh, absolutely. It's a terrible feeling.
It is pure fight or flight. When your brain registers that you are socially isolated, logic just completely goes out the window. You stop processing nuance and you just start seeing threats everywhere. That's exactly where Dorit is right now. She is in full survival mode.
And the environment certainly doesn't help. Boz brought up a specific moment where Erica made this big statement that seemed perfectly engineered just to make Dorit feel it. It wasn't even the consensus of the group, but it just added so much heat to the pressure cooker. It's essentially psychological warfare.
It really is. And that pressure cooker environment doesn't just evaporate when the season wraps. The ambient stress of constantly defending your spot in the hierarchy changes a person over time.
Speaking of the long-term changes that come from that exact hierarchy, a former Beverly Hills star just dropped a new memoir that blows the lid off that psychological warfare.
Lisa Rinna.
Yes, Lisa Rinna. She actually compared Lisa Vanderpump to Bobby Fischer.
Which is a heavy comparison.
Seriously. She called her the absolute greatest player of the Housewives game, claiming that in her early seasons, Rinna was gullible, and Vanderpump would call her every single morning just to mold her like clay.
To use a Bobby Fischer analogy is incredibly telling. It implies that every interaction, every casual morning phone call wasn't a genuine human connection at all.
It was a strategy.
Exactly. It was a calculated chess move. It means you are constantly viewing your so-called friends as pawns to be maneuvered for maximum impact on camera.
Right. But then Rinna flips the script and calls Vanderpump the biggest coward this show ever had because she disappeared and refused to film after the whole Puppygate scandal blew up in her face.
Right.
But the behind-the-scenes details Rinna shares really highlight that desperation for status.
Right.
She noted that the longer you exist in that ecosystem, the more you desperately crave being the top dog. She even confirmed a long-standing rumor.
About the opening credits.
Yes, that Kyle Richards getting the center diamond in the opening credits is strictly non-negotiable. It is baked in.
The center diamond is the ultimate symbol of narrative control. It visually validates your existence on the show. But the toll of fighting for that validation is staggering. Look at how Rinna reflects on the infamous Amsterdam dinner with Kim Richards.
That is easily one of the most explosive moments in reality television history.
Without a doubt.
Rinna admits in the book that when Kim taunted her with the line, "Let's talk about the husband," referring to Harry Hamlin, Rinna completely lost her grip. She confessed she almost reached across that table to physically strangle Kim.
It's terrifying.
The only thing that stopped her was a split-second flash of realizing she would go to jail. So instead, she settled for throwing water and violently smashing a wine glass on the table.
That split-second calculation is wild to think about. Her nervous system was pushed to the absolute brink of physical violence, and the pivot was still to commit an act of aggressive, performative destruction. It shows how the show pushes these women to the absolute edge of their emotional regulation.
And she doesn't hold back on the current cast either. She slammed Garcelle as fake from head to toe.
Wow.
But the most striking takeaway from the memoir is how she describes the aftermath of leaving. Rinna says a literal black cloud lifted from her family the moment she walked away. She firmly believes her model daughters, Delilah and Amelia, wouldn't be nearly as successful right now if she had stayed in that toxic environment.
That black cloud imagery is powerful. It perfectly captures the heavy, lingering emotional residue of this kind of performative conflict. When your daily job requires you to be hypervigilant, defensive, and combative, you don't just leave that at the studio.
No, you take it everywhere.
You bring that energy home to your spouse and your kids. It infects the entire family dynamic.
It really makes you question what kind of collateral damage people are willing to accept just to stay on our screens. And speaking of collateral damage and dark clouds, there is a different kind of storm hovering over Sutton's track right now.
The situation with Sutton goes so far beyond standard reality TV drama. It is a profound, multi-layered betrayal of trust.
It really is. To give some quick context on the end of her marriage to Christian Strack, it was already known for being incredibly cruel. Sutton previously revealed that on her birthday, Christian brought a cake to her celebratory dinner, played the part of the loving husband, and then immediately filed for divorce.
Brutal.
Now, her settlement does include $300,000 a month in alimony, but no amount of money insulates you from that level of emotional blindsiding. And now, we have a shocking update.
This part is just hard to fathom.
Christian is currently dating a former, very close friend of Sutton's, a woman Sutton actually raised her boys alongside.
The concentric circles of grief here are immense. You aren't just losing your husband, you're losing your history with a friend, and you're forced to reevaluate every single memory you have of the two of them together.
And it gets worse. Neither Christian nor this former friend had the decency to tell Sutton. She had to find out this devastating news from her own son.
That is just awful.
But there is a religious sting to all of this that adds a whole new level of erasure. Christian petitioned the Catholic Church for an annulment so he could officially marry this former friend within the church. Because the annulment was granted, Sutton is no longer recognized as Sutton Strack by the Catholic Church.
Unbelievable.
On their eyes, the marriage never existed, and she's been reverted to Sutton Brown.
Imagine having a massive chunk of your adult life, the very foundation of your family, just administratively wiped out by your faith institution. The dismantling of her identity here is breathtaking. It's not just a divorce, it's the systematic erasure of her past, her social circle, and her name.
Put yourself in her shoes for a moment. How do you even begin to compartmentalize that? Your ex-husband moves on with someone you trusted around your children. Your kid has to be the one to break the news to you. And your church tells you your marriage never happened.
It's a total destabilization of reality.
Yet, publicly, Sutton is navigating this profoundly humiliating scenario with remarkable grace. She isn't having public meltdowns.
Which requires an astronomical level of emotional regulation. She is refusing to give them the satisfaction of a public spiral.
But emotional regulation is exactly what is missing over on Southern Charm right now. We need to talk about the total breakdown happening with Craig Conover during the cast trip to Mexico.
A cast trip in a Sprinter van is basically a psychological pressure cooker designed to break people down. You have forced proximity, alcohol, and literally nowhere to escape.
Exactly. Craig was holding a bottle of tequila in this Sprinter van, visibly slurring his words and relentlessly trying to force Austin to drink with him.
Classic instigation.
Right. And when Sally Carson finally had enough and called his behavior out, Craig completely lost it. He told Sally to shut the mute up, aggressively called her dumb, and dramatically declared he was removing himself from her life entirely. It was a massive, disproportionate explosion.
And we might usually write that off as just a bad night caught on camera, but Leva Bonaparte immediately stepped in to provide some deeply necessary context that shatters that excuse.
Right. Leva publicly validated that fans are finally getting to witness what actually happens every season. She pulled back the curtain on past fights that the cameras somehow missed instances of people crying, screaming, and Craig having what she explicitly called a big screaming presence.
Which is a very deliberate choice of words.
Yes, and she even detailed allegedly misogynistic demands, claiming Craig told her she wasn't allowed to speak to his female partners, even though Leva had her own independent, decade-long friendships with them.
This brings up a critical conversation about the boundaries of behavior on these shows. At what point do we stop calling a big screaming presence good television and start recognizing it as coercive control?
That's the real question.
Demanding a female cast member isolate herself from other women crosses a massive line. It's no longer just interpersonal drama, it's an attempt to control someone else's autonomy.
It really is, and it's fascinating how control shifts in this world. Sometimes the cast members are trying to control each other, and sometimes the fans are trying to completely control the cast members. Let's shift gears to the Real Housewives of Atlanta and talk about NeNe Leakes trying to enter her soft girl era.
NeNe's current situation is a masterclass in the paradox of modern fame. You build an audience by sharing your life, but that same audience eventually feels entitled to govern it.
Exactly. So NeNe was recently spotted courtside at a Memphis Grizzlies game.
Yeah.
And she shared a quick peck with a man named Arthur Earl Horn III. Almost immediately, the internet sleuths went to work.
Of course they did.
Within hours, they dug deep into his background and plastered old arrest allegations for assault all over social media.
The speed at which a private, casual date is subjected to a global background check is terrifying. There is no grace period to just get to know someone.
NeNe actually had to jump on an Instagram Live just to mitigate the damage. She firmly downplayed the kiss, insisting it was literally just a peck and that they simply went on a date. She explained that she is actively trying to embrace her soft girl era.
Meaning she wants peace.
Right. She wants to date multiple men, have fun, keep it light, and do exactly what men do all the time without facing this intense moral panic.
The double standard there is glaring. A man in the public eye dating around is considered a bachelor having fun. A woman doing it has her dates aggressively vetted and criticized by millions of strangers.
And you could hear the deep frustration in her voice. She felt the fans completely ruined a lighthearted moment for her. She admitted she is now seriously considering keeping her dating life entirely locked down and private moving forward.
Imagine trying to build a romantic connection when millions of people are actively rooting through the person's past and screaming at you about it. NeNe's desire for a soft girl era, which is all about ease, gentle boundaries, and low stress, is fundamentally incompatible with a hyper-vigilant reality TV audience.
They just don't mix.
The fans think they are protecting her, but they are actually just suffocating her.
They feel like they own a piece of her reality. Now, I want to carefully change the tone here because our next topic deals with the very sobering life-or-death consequences of that exact kind of public ownership. We need to look at the dark side of early exposure through the story of Alexa Curtin, the daughter of former Real Housewives of Orange County star Lynn Curtin.
This is a devastating illustration of the themes we've been unpacking today. The collateral damage here isn't just a ruined date or a lost friendship. It is a life completely derailed.
It is incredibly heartbreaking. Alexa is currently struggling with a severe fentanyl addiction. She is living homeless in a Lancaster motel, sometimes having to sleep in the hallways.
It's tragic.
She has endured horrific, unimaginable physical trauma, including losing 2 fingers in a car accident and surviving a brutal hours-long sexual assault.
And what demands our attention here is that Alexa has been very vocal about tracing the origins of this nightmare directly back to her time on the show.
Yes, she explained how being featured as a minor on national television essentially fueled her downfall. Because of how her family was portrayed, she faced intense, relentless bullying and isolation at school. She directly links that profound loneliness and public humiliation to turning to heavy drinking, which eventually escalated to hard drugs.
When you place a teenager in a high-pressure, heavily scrutinized environment, their developing brain simply does not have the tools to process that level of public judgment. They didn't consent to trading their awkward, vulnerable developmental years for a network storyline.
No, they didn't.
The bullying she experienced wasn't just normal high school drama. It was amplified by millions of viewers dissecting her family's flaws every week.
And the fracture within her family is absolute. She has been completely estranged from her parents, Lynn and Frank, since 2019 following an argument over a car. During a recent interview, she had this tragic, explosive outburst directed right at the camera, aimed at her father.
Mm-hmm.
She screamed, "Frank Curtin, you mute, I hate you." In the same breath, she heartbreakingly admitted she knows she has destroyed her life, saying she's just going to keep doing the devil dance.
That phrase, the devil dance, is haunting. It speaks to a total loss of hope. That outburst at her father isn't just anger. It is decades of unprocessed pain and betrayal from a child who feels her safety and privacy were sold.
Yeah.
It forces us to take a really hard look at the ethics of featuring minors in this genre. The entertainment value we get from watching a family's dynamic play out on screen comes at a devastating, often lifelong cost to the children involved.
It completely reframes how you consume this media. You start wondering about the human cost of the content, which actually provides a stark, fascinating transition to our final topic today. Because the struggle to protect your family from the cameras isn't just a Bravo problem. We are talking about the ultimate reality show, the royals, specifically Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
The parallels between reality television and modern royalty are striking. Both rely entirely on public consumption for their relevance, yet both constantly battle for narrative control.
We saw this play out perfectly just recently. For Valentine's Day, a sweet, seemingly candid photo was released of Harry holding their daughter Lilibet, with Archie mentioned affectionately in the caption. It paints this flawless picture of total domestic bliss in California.
It's highly curated.
But contrast that highly curated, happy photo with claims from a royal expert who says there are actually fiery rows happening constantly behind closed doors.
And the root of these reported arguments comes back to the exact same theme we've been tracking all day: privacy and public exposure.
Exactly. The expert breaks down the core conflict beautifully. Prince Harry has a deep-seated, trauma-rooted need for a genuinely private life. This stems entirely from his childhood, the tragic loss of his mother, and the relentless predatory media scrutiny he survived.
Right.
But this fundamental need for a fortress clashes with what the expert describes as Meghan's natural comfort with movie star behavior, public visibility, and Hollywood fame.
This is a psychological deadlock. Harry's core requirement for safety is a private sanctuary, a retreat from the world's gaze. Meghan's background in acting suggests a comfort with, and perhaps a reliance on, leveraging public influence and visibility.
Yeah, they operate differently.
They allegedly left the royal family to escape the crushing weight of the public eye, but they have arguably cultivated an even more accessible, massive public profile in America. Balancing two diametrically opposed needs for safety under a global microscope is a monumental, perhaps impossible task.
It really brings everything full circle. As we wrap up this deep dive, look at the incredible thread connecting every single one of these sources. Whether you are a housewife clapping back over a business venture, a teenager dealing with the lifelong trauma of your parents' TV fame, or a literal prince trying to protect your family from the press, the core theme is undeniable.
The incredibly heavy, soul-crushing price of living a public life.
Yes.
It is a powerful reminder for all of us, especially in an era where we are constantly told that oversharing is the key to success and monetization. There is profound, irreplaceable value in protecting your own privacy. The peace that comes from a life lived completely off camera, where your mistakes, your arguments, and your heartbreak aren't processed as content for public consumption, is priceless.
Absolutely. Keep your private moments close, protect your peace, and to leave you with a final provocative thought to ponder on your own after we sign off. What if the most profound reality isn't what we watch on screen, but the quiet, often painful process of discovering who we actually are when the cameras finally stop rolling and there is no one left to perform for?